Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 510.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because you know, like I know, that, well, when you start your business, the way, the vision, who you are, it does not stay the same. You grow over time. And what's interesting is that you have heard me say before, so I will say again, where you start isn't necessarily where you stay. And we have another example of this, and I hope that when we bring you these examples that you understand that, yes, one day you may see yourself as this super real estate mogul or business tycoon, but where you start is way more important. That you start is like paramount to making it happen. And it doesn't mean that you can't one day be this ultimate vision of yourself. But you should also be open to the vision changing and becoming different along the way. In fact, I think that today's guest will be able to help you see that in a completely different way, because I am talking, of course, of Todd Dexheimer, CEO of Venture D Properties. And many of you may know him from his own podcast, right? But you may not be familiar with the fact that he has completed a significant number of flips, and some of the interesting things inside of his real estate accomplishments are things like a ski resort. You're like, a what? Yeah, these are all real estate deals in various different ways. And I don't know, but I'm going to take a stab and say that Todd did not expect a ski resort as a part of his journey, but maybe he did. And yet today, when it comes to, syndicating multifamily and doing business that way, this is what Todd does. So let's listen to the journey. Let's see what we can learn, because I think you and I will be able to glean a significant amount of information that could inform our next steps on what we must do and how we must grow in order to become the bigger, better, badder version of the entrepreneurs we all desire to be. So let's make sure we take out those pens, those papers, those pads, those tablets, whatever it is that you use to take notes on, as we listen to Todd Dexheimer. Todd, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic. That's an awesome intro. I love that.
Thank you. Well, you're the one who did all the work, so you made it kind of easy when you've accomplished a lot of things. Now, before I get too far into it, I want to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, Black Widow, I don't know, you pick. Because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, as an entrepreneur, occasionally I can envision myself, running around town, using our products and services, saving our customers one sale at a time. And yes, I probably am wearing a cape and tights, at least in my head at that moment. Also, though, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. I mean, if you think about, say, Spider-Man, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing, nothing really special about that, trying to earn some extra money, taking some photos. And then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers he has a superhuman ability, and has to choose now. Hey, do I use this power for good or for evil? So my question to you is as follows. Before completing 150 flips, before the mobile home park, ski resort, the apartment complexes, before your podcast, before, doing all of the interesting things that you get to do as a real estate investor, what we want to know is, who is Todd Dexheimer?
Good question. So, well, before all of that stuff, I was a high school teacher. I taught shop class. So I
Nice.
just did a simple, whatever, not 9 to 5, but 7 to 3 job,
Mm.
and really didn't do anything entrepreneurial. Wasn't in anything very entrepreneurial, but I always did have that kind of burning itch to do something. And so it didn't take very long into my teaching career, 5 years to be exact. Actually, I started in less than 5 years. 5 years is after I quit. So I actually about 3 years in to start this real estate journey.
So, okay, so I'm curious because I've heard this teacher to real estate investor thing before because it seems to be very common with teachers, and but I find that interesting that like they, I was a teacher, really. I'm no longer surprised by that, but I am surprised that you're the first teacher that's like that I've run into that was not like a math teacher. You taught shop, so I find that interesting, but I think that also informs a lot of the type of real estate that you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious to know, what was it that you discovered 3 years into teaching that you go, you know what, I need to do this real estate thing?
Yeah, I think almost from the start when I was starting to teach, it was I got to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up because it wasn't for me, honestly.
Hold on. When you grow up, you were already, were you not, you weren't growing up yet, but you were teaching. This
Yeah,
is good. I like
I'm
this.
still growing up.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, so I just started kind of searching and figuring out and reading books, and as I started reading books and really I've never been a fictional book kind of person. I've always liked to read, books that are going to teach me something. And so as I'm reading these books, I'm going, I really like the idea of business. And then I started stumbling upon real estate books and I really liked that idea as well. And so that's kind of where it just snowballed. It was honestly just books, learning. I didn't have anybody around me that I knew that I didn't even know realtors. Um, so it just was about reading these books and kind of just getting completely obsessed with it through that I just was like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be stuck in a classroom teaching. um Honestly, teaching a lot of times kids that don't want to be there, and teaching with a lot of other teachers that don't want to be there, and administration that doesn't want to be there. And it just, I don't know, wasn't an environment that I wanted to stick around in for whatever 35, 40 years.
Well, what I find interesting about that is like, yeah, we all get the kids don't want to be there. But I think it's ironic that you're like, I don't want to be there either. So I was trying to figure out something to do about it. But that actually leads me to my next question. There's a number of people listening right now who are in jobs where they would, I mean, in fact, they are commuting right now. They are in traffic right this second. They don't want to be there, on way to a job that they don't want to be at, working next to people who they don't want to associate with, but yet can't find the courage to leave. How did you manage that?
Well, this maybe doesn't isn't like the pop that you want. But honestly, it was, well, first of all, it was I knew I had to do something different. So it was I had to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. I thought about going back to school, becoming a doctor, or other things, and it just like, I don't want to do that. Um, so for me, how did I get the courage? There's kind of a couple answers. One is uh, I needed to find a way out. I saw real estate as that opportunity to get myself out. I saw that I could create that cash flow. The numbers were there. They made a lot of sense. And so the path was pretty clear to me is I need to buy these properties to get out. Now, the courage was kind of more or less once I actually completely got out was just I already replaced my income and then some in my rental income. And wasn't very much because teachers don't get paid much. So, for me, it was, I just needed to make 30 grand. And once I did
Whoa,
that,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
I could quit my job.
Hold on. When was this?
2008.
You're saying
when I started.
Yeah. No. I'm just trying to. A teacher makes $30,000.
It was year number 3 when I started this journey, and yes, I was making, I think, $31,000.
I didn't know that. I mean, I knew it wasn't a lot, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, because 30, and you're in Minnesota.
I'm in Minnesota, yeah.
That still doesn't go very far in Minnesota.
No, not at all. No.
This is why teachers are fleeing into real estate, because it doesn't take that much, and that's insane for the work you guys do. That's not enough money.
Well, when you're a tenured teacher that's been there for 20 years and you've got a master's degree or a doctorate degree, PhD, you can be making 80 to 100 grand. So that's all right. But when you just get out of college and start, until you get your master's degree, you don't make, I mean, you're looking at $30,000 to $40,000.
Yeah, but okay, I'm a numbers guy, real estate, investing, business, what I do. You're saying I've got to spend another, I don't know how much a master's degree is cost, but I've got to spend that money and that time, plus the bachelor's degree money and time. No, that, I mean, the ROI doesn't seem to work for me. Am I missing something?
No, it's funny that you say that, because that's exactly, I would look at my salary, because it was all printed out in front of you, exactly what you could make at what steps and all this kind of stuff. So I'd be looking at it and going, okay, I got to get my master's degree, and they don't actually apply that until you get to a certain stage. So maybe 5 years in or whatever it was. I can't remember now, but
wow.
So in 5 years I can get my master's, and I'll jump up to like $45,000. And in 7 years I can get my master's plus X amount of extra credits, and I can jump up to 50,000. And I'm going, these numbers just, they don't even make sense. Like, this is ridiculous. It's going to take me forever just to get to anywhere where I even feel like I can say my salary out loud to anybody. so yeah, I'm a numbers person too. And it just makes no sense. You look at what you have to spend to get there and the time you have to take, and it's like, what am I doing?
Wow.
This is ridiculous.
Okay.
I wish I would have thought of that a lot sooner, but it took me until I got into my career to actually think about it.
No, I'm stunned. I didn't know. I mean, wow. Okay, so for all of you teachers, I see your next step. I mean, you're for those of you who have wondered why the teachers get upset so much. I mean, one, if you're still, in front of a teacher today, please hug them, because they clearly have earned it. Be nice to your teachers. All right. But okay. So, and here's the other thing that I find a little paradoxical is you're a teacher, but you're still taking the time to learn. And because there's a lot of individuals out there who are like, I went to college, I did my thing, I don't need to, I'm done learning. And they like check it off as if it was something that somehow stopped. But yet that was not you. What inspired you to pick up the books?
Yeah, I mean, it just the way out, the trying to figure out what's next, what's that real chapter. And so, yeah, that's honestly what inspired me to pick up the books. I've never been a really big reader, and I would say I'm still not. I do read as much as I can, but it's almost like, all right, you got it. Like, I have to set time for it. But yeah, it was just that I needed that way out, and reading was going to provide that, because I was surrounded by, the people I was surrounded by were teachers, and we were in a very, middle class type environment. So we had a lot of, our neighbors were people that worked blue collar type jobs. And so it wasn't like I was going to get a lot of mentorship from the people that were surrounding me. So books were my mentors.
And I get that. And I appreciate you saying that, because there's not enough individuals who understand that you don't have to be like right next door to the person for them to teach you something or for you to glean something from their experience. And doing so through books is a very good way. And interesting, something that you said about the books. I've been thinking these past couple of weeks, like, when was the last time I read a fiction book? Like, I can't remember, to be honest. I'm like, I'm sure it's been well over 10 years and possibly even longer. It's like, if I'm going to take the time to read, I want something that's going to build me and make it happen. So Let me now ask this question. You're reading these books, you're going through this transition. Why real estate? Like, I mean, you could have done anything, but you said real estate's the way to make it happen. Why?
Purely, I mean, the numbers made a lot of sense. The story makes a lot of sense when you start thinking about, okay, real estate cash flow. I can get this cash flow. I can force some appreciation through, improving the property, or through buying in the right neighborhoods. And then it's a lifetime thing where I don't have to. Eventually I can get to the point, if I want to, and who knows if I ever will, because I love doing deals now. But when I was beginning, it was, hey, I can get to a point where I've got 100 units, 500 units, whatever that number is, and I don't have to work anymore, or work very hard anymore. I can hire people to manage it for me and spend a very little bit of time on it. So if I do want to retire, there's my retirement. I don't have to think about. I never liked the idea, and even this was even at a very young age, I never liked the idea of retiring and having to pinch pennies just to make your survival till you're 90 years old, and then making your kids take care of you because you financially don't have any resources left. I never liked that idea. So real estate provided that cash flow, strong cash flow, and then chance for, appreciation.
It's interesting. I think there's a number of people who would, who say that, meaning they don't like that future, but yet they're still not doing anything about it. And you've managed to make that happen. So walk us through the transition. How, what was it like the Monday morning after you go, okay, I'm doing this full time? Did you wake up going, oh my God, what did I just do? Or was it, okay, I can do this?
Hello there, entrepreneur. This is Jay Massey. I know that if you've ever gone over to the site, cashflowdiary.com, you may have asked yourself, where on earth do you get a domain name from? Especially as you are beginning to build your bigger, better, badder business, you need a web presence. You need the email address. You need a way for people to contact you electronically so that you can stop doing the @gmail.com game. Well, the good folks over at GoDaddy have definitely supplied us with every domain that we have ever used. So what I want you to do is I want you to go over to trygodaddy.com/cashflow diary. Again, that's trygodaddy.com/cashflow diary, because it's a quick way for you to get set up to capture your domain name the exact way that you want it. They got easy search functions, and most importantly for you is that you'll be up and running today. As I said, once you get started, stay started. Don't let small little obstacles of how to get your own domain name going stop you. So again, go to trygodaddy.com/cashflow diary, and let's get back to the rest of the story.
Yeah, man, I was so pumped. I was so ready for it. So I had been doing real estate for a few years, part-time, but I was fully in and committed. My last, year of teaching, I was not committed to teaching. I was very committed.
Short timer syndrome, right? Every day. I can admit, do your homework or not. I don't care.
Yeah, go do whatever. I'm looking at properties. So yeah, I was all in. I was, guns ablazing and pumped. I mean, this was my future, and I loved every minute of it. So it was such an easy transition. Was it a little nerve-wracking? Sure, it was a little nerve-wracking, but at the same time, like I said earlier, I'd already built enough passive income, or, semi-passive, because they're rentals, they still require some work. But I already built that income to be greater than my teaching income. So it was a little nerve-wracking, but for the most part, I was so ready for it, and I was just pumped.
Awesome. That's awesome. So take us. So you've completed this transition now. Obviously, you've been into the full-time world of real estate for quite some time. If you could go back and talk to that same Todd who was getting first started, what is it that you would tell him that you now know that you were like you kind of wish you knew then?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's kind of hard to answer, because you go, well, I really like my life. I enjoy where I'm at. I don't want to change things, right? Because change might mean that you're not where you're at right now. But at the same time, if I could go back and tell myself some advice, or tell somebody else starting advice, I would say you don't need to always graduate. And by that, I mean, get started now, scale up quickly. If you want to buy 1,000 units in multifamily, it doesn't mean that you need to buy single families and then some duplexes and then some fourplexes and then gradually work your way up to finally buying a 100-unit building 20 years down the road. Scale as quickly as you can. Build partnerships. You've got to learn and grow. You do have to take time. I'm not saying just go buy a 100-unit on your very first deal without any education or partnerships, but at the same time, go as quickly as you can and don't worry about graduating. That's how I always thought of before. It was like, I got to get to I got to go slow. I got to buy a 20-unit, and then maybe I'll buy a 30-unit. And then eventually, 5 years or so from now, I'll be able to buy a 100-unit building. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, I think I think it's something interesting where we think that maybe because when we were in K through 12, we didn't start at calculus. We had to start with arithmetic. We kind of take that same approach with wanting to make real estate happen. And there's something to be said for education and experience, but it doesn't mean it has to take 4 years or even 1 year for that matter. Cause I can remember when I first got started, I was like, okay, it's going to take me 10 years to get to, and for whatever reason, I just thought it was going to take 10 years to build a passive income of $10,000 a month. That's what I thought. I was pleasantly surprised, but that's what I thought because I didn't know. But the point, though, is to get started. So I'm curious, Todd, let's talk to that person who has that desire, right? Yeah, I want to have that 1,000-unit dream right now. But they don't necessarily see the path, but more importantly, I can see them from time to time passing things up. How important is that first deal, even if it's not that 1,000-unit deal?
Yeah, you've got to get off your couch and you've got to go do a deal. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have to be that 100-unit deal, that 500-unit deal, that 20-unit deal. You've got to get out and do a deal. Of course, the numbers have to make sense. I mean, that's important as well. You don't want to just, pull the trigger just because I told you to go do a deal. The numbers have to make sense. It has to be fundamentally, sound, but yeah, you have to make it happen. And that's something that I've been very diligent at is, I'm not going to just sit around and wait for a deal to come to me. You've got to go find them. You've got to make the offers. You've got to actually turn the rocks over, and get those deals done. But as far as like scaling and getting to bigger properties and getting there quicker, look at things like partnerships and look at, syndications, which are partnerships, wholesaling large apartments. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to get there, or commercial, whatever you're getting into. There are all kinds of ways to go big. It doesn't have to necessarily be the traditional path that you think. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that for a second. Did Did you see a ski resort in your future when you started?
Yeah, I had no clue I would ever buy a ski resort. So yeah, that's a totally off the cuff story. But yeah, I mean, be creative. I flipped a mobile home park too. I never thought about doing something like that. But when opportunity comes, you've got to take advantage of it. You've got to always put yourself out there for one to get those opportunities, and then you've got to take advantage of them when they actually come by, and be able to pull the trigger. I mean, I always would look at a deal and say, okay, how can I do this deal?
Mm-hmm.
And what is it going to take? And if I couldn't figure out how to get the money for it, I was going to figure out how to find another buyer to buy it and either partner with or just get some money from them through the sale. So you always have to figure out, how can I get this deal done?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I'm curious, now that you're into the world of the larger transactions, etc., what was it like? Because I remember where I was sitting. I remember how it went down. The first time you're signing your name on a 7-figure plus transaction.
Oh boy. I mean, yeah, your nerves are definitely going, right? Because you've been doing these deals that are
Right.
for me, I've been doing mostly deals that are under 500,000.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I'm doing a deal. Let's see, what was my first my first deal over $1 million, I think, was around 3 million. So now all of a sudden I'm signing this,
Mm-hmm.
LOI on these big properties. Yeah, I guess it was nerve wracking, but it's also exciting at the same time to go, okay, this is the next step. I'm ready for this step. Like, here we go.
So let's talk about that, because syndications tend to become a very popular strategy, especially because, as I've said before, I don't care who you are, you run out of your own resources, and learning to leverage the resources of other people is it's in your future, whether you like it or not. If you want to continue to grow, it's part of how that growth happens. What have you found to be like, why was syndication your answer, and what are some of the things that you appreciate about it?
Yeah, well, syndication was the answer for me. Kind of just what you said. I mean, if you want to scale, if you want to go big, eventually you run out of resources. I could have went and done, one deal, 100+ units with my own money. Easily could have sold a couple of my smaller properties and done that. And that would have been fine. But then I would have been tapped out, and now I got 100 unit, and that's it. And then I'm done. So, okay, well, instead of doing that, since you're going to be tapped out at one deal, let's figure out how to do 10, 20, 30 deals and more. And that was syndication. I've always been interested in syndication. I've always used private money when I was doing my flips, when I was buying my rentals. I would buy most of them small rentals. I'm saying like single families, duplexes, stuff like that. I would always use other people's money, at least to purchase them in the front end, because I was purchasing mostly vacant, extremely distressed buildings. And so I was always using other people's money, always giving them returns. And so already had not a huge investor list, but I already had an investor list, and I had done really well at returning their money. So I had a lot of people that trusted me. And when I told them, what I was going to be doing, transitioning into the multifamily, all of them said, yeah, I'm on board. So it just made sense as a way to get them involved again, and obviously scale then my business and do what I wanted to do with the multifamily.
Yeah, it was basically an alignment of interest, and I totally hear that completely. So walk us through what is the deal du jour, the deal of the day. I mean, if you're anything like me, you're always looking, and you constantly have something as in the back of your mind as your next acquisition target.
Well, right now, if you're asking an acquisition target, right now I'm looking at a few different buildings. One I would be really excited. Well, all of them I'd be excited if we got, but one I would be really excited if we got to put an LOI out. And this is a completely not marketed, not even by a broker, nobody. I actually approached the kind of the main broker that in that city and about this property and just said, "Hey, do you know the owner?" They did. And I said, "All right, let's get an offer on this." And so we just submitted an LOI. We're actually going to be talking tomorrow on that project. So we'll see, kind of where it goes. I'm really excited for it. It's got a lot of opportunity. It's in a sub-market of the city that's got a lot of good growth happening. I would say it's got probably the most potential in the city to really increase and grow. And it's just on the leading edge of that. And it's not a high crime area or anything. It's just an area that hasn't been developed. And now it's just kind of starting to, I shouldn't say it hasn't been developed. It had been developed years ago, but it's starting to get like the new shops in and that type of stuff. So new redevelopment.
So did I hear that correctly? And I just want to make sure, because if I did, I want to make sure that everybody else hears it correctly. There was no indication that this property was for sale at all, and yet you decided to send in an LOI anyway. Is that accurate?
Yeah, 100%.
Perfect.
I don't have the financials. In fact, I have a CoStar report that we got. We did research through apartments.com and through, Rentometer, and just knowing the market, drove through the property, looking on Google Maps, all that kind of stuff. The broker, one advantage, the broker had been into that property about 2 years ago, because he had sold another one of that guy's properties about 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was. So that was one advantage. He had been inside the property, so he knows the type of condition it's in, at least a few years ago. And so, yeah, I mean, it's honestly a completely as off market as you can get. I was leaving town, and I stopped at a gas station, and I saw that property there right next to all this new redevelopment. And I'm like, man, that is a prime piece of real estate right there. I want to buy that property.
I love it. I love it. And I hope everyone can hear. You can't turn this thing off. Once you start to understand what opportunity looks like, everywhere you go, you're just like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And because there have been times where I'm traveling with my wife, and she's like, will you stop? And I'm like, I'm not trying to. I just can't. I mean, you're here, you're getting gas, minding your own business, and then all of a sudden, it just screams at you, buy me. I mean, there doesn't need to be a sign. It's just right there. It's obvious. Doesn't everybody see it? And the answer is no, you do. But and not only that, you also take the extra steps to figure out what it's going to take to go find it. So I love that 100%. Now, for those that have listened this far, possibly want to join you on this journey through syndication, etc., what's going to be the best way for them to find out more about what you got going on?
Yeah, I would say the easiest is to go onto my website. It's venturedproperties.com, and they can go in there. There's a place where they can click to get more information, and then we'll connect. We'll do a phone call and just kind of talk and see if it's something for them, and get on my mailing list and all that kind of good stuff. So
awesome. So as we wind down here, I'm interested to hear your answer to the following question. Let's pretend that someone's listened this far and they're just like, yeah, this makes sense to me. I like what I like what they're talking about. I want to do this. I want to become a bigger, better, badder entrepreneur. They have gathered inspiration to do their own thing based upon this conversation. And now, Todd, here's the challenge. They're at what I like to call that precipice of decision. They know they should move forward. They want to move forward. In fact, they're probably even standing in front of the superhero outfit store right now, ready to pick out their own cape and tights. However, like I know that when we reach these moments, oftentimes we have a companion, and that companion comes in the form of a voice, and that voice, it always reminds us, oh, don't you remember what happened last time? And oh my gosh, you're going to do real estate? Do you not know? I mean, you're a teacher. You make no money. You know nothing. How on earth are you going to get involved in real estate? And for some people, they're even related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. They're going to follow through, and they're going to do exactly what you say. Not only are they going to do it, they're going to do it in the next 24 to 48 hours. So, Todd, what do they do?
Well, I mean, honestly, it starts with your motivation, with your, I think most people have heard it before. It starts with your why. It starts with, you know, it, you have to commit. You have to fully commit and not just don't take no for an answer. You're gonna get punched in the face. I love that Mike Tyson quote.
Yes.
Whatever, I can't remember exactly how it goes.
Everybody has a plan before the fight starts. And then that bell rings, you get punched in the face. It's out the window. It doesn't matter. I love it, man. Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. So you're going to get punched in the face. You're going to get smacked down. And like you said, there's people, maybe it's in your own head. Maybe it's others, that your friends or family, but you're going to be told you're crazy, and you're going to be told no, and you're going to be told all kinds of stuff. And if you're willing to listen to that stuff, you're never going to get started. But you have to ignore it, and you have to persevere, and you just push on, because there is going to be a lot of negative people around you and views around you, and you are going to stumble. And when you stumble, that's the most important part, is not to go, oh, they were right. It's to go, all right, I got to push on even harder, because I know I'm right.
Right. Yeah, and you got to have that fundamental belief that you are right, and it's got to come from somewhere, usually internal more than external. So that's 100%. I definitely want to say I appreciate you taking the time to do what you do, because it's not. It's not easy to step out, and you've done that. And that's what the world needs more of, is people stepping into the greatness that I believe that we were all born to display. And you're out there, you're doing it, and you're making that happen. And I definitely appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me, and I couldn't agree more. I think I don't know, what everybody believes, whether you think God put you here or somebody else or whatever you think, but you're on this earth, and you've been given gifts. And so with those gifts, it's a shame if you just let them, go by the wayside, and don't take full advantage of the gifts you've been given, and really make this world a better place than where you came into it at.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? Well, today that means venture, the letter D, properties.com. Because you have heard about this real estate thing. We have brought you person after person of examples that real estate works. Well, now's the time to do something about it. Not only that, I want you to remember something, because you heard from a teacher today, and that teacher told you, you don't need to graduate. Now, let's go out there and make something happen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.